knock down the doors other cops don't want to. Taking fire from every scumbag in town.
They didn't earn it. I don't feel bad about taking it.
All about bringing force down on the street. Why don't y'all take a look at what you got going on under your own roof?
I never put the money above us.
How long you think that's gonna last?
I don't want Vic in our lives anymore.
You're investigating me?
Vic Mackey beats suspects. He deals drugs. And that's just all in one day. I wonder what he's gonna do tomorrow.
Everybody down! Hey, my day's just getting started.
Hello. Opening a few minutes late. So sorry about that. Welcome to another episode of Chew the Fat, where we talk about a film or TV show in depth and discuss why generally it's so fantastic, because we wouldn't spend an episode of Chewing the Fat talking about a film that we think is terrible, although I guess that's a possibility for the future. My regular co-host for this section is none other than the Inside Man.
Good evening. How are you?
Not too bad. Still coughing, but you know.
You sound your tubes sound a little bit clearer this evening. So
never let it not be said that the Inside Man's presence alone cannot be responsible for clearing out my tubes. So, and I'll take that
well said. Yeah.
to the grave. What two fantastic, absolutely cracking episodes we're going to talk about today. I'm really looking forward to it.
Very good. Me too.
So, he's an ex-felon, he's an ex-cop, he's an ex-military man, he's an ex-melon. Sorry, he's still a melon. It's the Lord of Toxicity.
Go Chiefs! What's up, guys? How are you?
Not too bad. Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Always adding flavour to the stream. And last, but by no means least, it's the man who's got to go live on StreamYard. It's Northern English Bastard.
Hello, you beautiful bastards. And yes, I have got the slides ready for both episodes, so we should be good to go.
Fantastic. Between you and me also having pictures ready, we should get through quite a lot. Now, I am still a little bit coffee, so I'm gonna make the synopsis of the episode Northern Bastard short today. Not that short, but fairly short. And then we'll dig in to the meat of the episodes themselves. We're talking about episode 9, which is actually one of my favorite episodes of the entire series, and it's definitely up there with one of my favorite episodes of season 2, Co-Pilot. For some reason, I got it into my head that this episode was always called Pre-Pilot. I don't know why I thought that, but that stuck with me for some reason. And I always used to call it Pre-Pilot, but Co-Pilot, which is set 14 months before the pilot. Then we're going to talk about episode 10, Coyotes, which is also a good episode, and another one that we're going to get into in detail. But yeah, two fantastic episodes to talk about. So we're going to talk about episode 9 first. Has everybody been good?
Yeah.
Let's go anyway.
Has we're going to go regardless of whether you've been good or not. Has everybody watched September 5th for the Nielsen ratings on Tuesday?
Just have.
Bloody good, isn't it?
It's good. It's good. It makes me want to watch Munich again as well, which is also
actually I have the DVD of Munich, and I also have the DVD of 21 Hours in Munich, which is the first ever movie that was made about that, which I remember seeing as a kid on English TV. I think it was, I might be wrong, but I think it might have been shown on Channel 4. But I might be wrong about that. But I saw it when I was very young. We're going down a slight rabbit hole here, and we'll pick it up on Tuesday. But I do remember watching that movie and thinking, is this about a real event? Because I'm really confused, because the bad guys seem to have won. So I was very confused, because I was used to the good guys winning, and suddenly there was this film where everybody got killed. So we're going to be the Nielsen ratings on Tuesday is going to be a bit of a Munich special. So we're going to talk about the new film, September the 5th, which is about Munich. It's a really good movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. And we're also going to talk about Steven Spielberg's Munich, which I will watch before then. And we're going to talk about 21 Hours in Munich. If you haven't seen it, you can probably find it on YouTube. So Northern, try and watch that as well before then, if you can.
I will. I'll try.
And there's a documentary. I think the documentary was called Black September or Black Monday or something. Inside Man, do you remember the one that was narrated?
It's probably Black September because it was
narrated by Michael Douglas, wasn't it?
Oh, right. Yeah, I know the one you're talking
about. And it came out in the early 2000s, and it got a cinema release.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw it. Toxic's got an escorting gig on Tuesday night, so he can't be with us. But not a problem. Oh, Darth. Yeah, dude. Sorry, man. I forgot to send you the link.
I'm sorry, Lance. I don't have his contact info. I apologize.
Yeah, he has limited contact information in prison, but I'll just drop him
I see. That makes sense.
I'll just drop him the link in the chat. The link's in the chat now, man. Copy and paste quick, and then we'll delete it as soon as you appear. Anyway, okay. So we're gonna get into it. So yeah, Munich special on Tuesday, talking all things Munich. That'll be a cheerful stream. All right, okay. Let's get on with Copilot to start with. 14 months earlier. What a great slide to put up at the beginning. So yeah, as it suggests in the pre-title sequence, we're 14 months earlier. So what's great about this is, so Vince and Shane are sort of doing regular detective work. So there's an immediate aesthetic to this piece where everybody looks slightly different. If you watch the episode, everyone looks slightly different except for Dutch, who looks exactly the same, has exactly the same suit on, even the same tie. So we're back in time. Vic and his wife's relationship is markedly different. They still have a bit of a spark. And this episode really shows it's really about the barn being set up. This is set in the week that the barn comes into existence. So we get the background of how Acevedo is appointed to that job, how he comes to be in command of the barn, so to speak. We see the barn being converted from the church that it was, crucifixes being taken down and this kind of thing. Dutch arrives having transferred from Sunset. He arrives at 9 o'clock, whereas Acevedo likes everyone to start at 7 a.m. So a marked difference in the work ethic. So Dutch ends up with a desk by the ladies. We've also got a seasoned detective working there who broke a major high-profile case. Dutch has kind of followed this guy and he looks up to him. So, but one of the interesting things is that same guy who plays Detective Tom Gannon, he is the one who starts the bullying against Dutch. It actually doesn't originate with Vic. So it's quite interesting to see that, for example, because he starts off by hiding Dutch's chair, which is something that Vic then picks up and carries on. And we learn a bit of backstory about Dutch that we didn't know before, that he's just gone through a divorce. His ex-wife was an alcoholic, and she ended up shacking up with her sponsor. So he's kind of gone through a bit of a bad time. We never knew all of this stuff before that. There's some other groundwork that's kind of laid, like one of Mackey's major sort of drug dealing street contacts, Rondell, who's quite present in season 1. We kind of see how Rondell ascends to that position. It's because of Mackey. But more importantly, this is when we see the strike team put together. We see how Mackie jockeys for that position. He's also responsible for Shane being put on the strike team. Ronnie and Lem are allocated to those positions. There's the first clash between Vic and Acevedo. And this is also where Vic and his team, in order to break their first case and put themselves on the map, this is where they cross that thin blue line. As Vic says, if we do it just this once, it will help us, gain a reputation and put us on the map. So it's basically a flashback episode. Now, we've seen flashback episodes in other shows, but I've never seen them. They're normally sort of connected more to a present story, and they kind of augment something that's going on in the present. This is really giving you the background to all the characters and what they were doing just before they arrived at the barn, or how they ended up there, and so on. And I would say that of all the characters in the 14 months as to where they are now in season 2, as to where they are in this flashback, the one character who is still predominantly, I would say almost 100% the same person, is Claudette. So it's really, really interesting to see all this story. There's a number of really great subplots in it. Claudette, Gannon, and Dutch are trying to break a case, and Dutch thinks that Gannon is the detective to hook up with. He kind of looks up to him, but he soon realizes that Gannon actually is kind of past his prime, and Claudette, in her own way, is the better detective, because she is just a good detective. She's the best detective here. And then Dutch actually asks to be partnered with her, and he runs that through Acevedo and checks with her, is that okay if I do that? And Claudette says yes. So we know that Claudette is partly responsible for their partnership as well. There's so many great things about this episode, but I think this episode is a prime example of just how amazingly clever this show is. No one has ever done a flashback episode that augments and solidifies the character narratives in the present of a show than this. This is the best flashback episode I've ever seen in any drama show ever. And I remember when I saw this episode for the first time, it really caught me by surprise. It just sort of came out of nowhere. There was no indication it was coming. And it just told me so much about all these characters that I already knew. I thought really, really, really clever. The episode is directed by Peter Hornton, one of the regular directors of the show. It's written by the trio Shawn Ryan, Glenn Mazzara, and Kim Clements. So yeah, obviously I'll rate it at the end, but I think this episode for me is The Shield at its best. There's not a particularly massive dramatic moment, but there's all this great stuff in it. Yeah, really loved it. So that's my summary of it, and those are my initial thoughts. Inside Man, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to go slightly contrary.
Fuck me. How did I know that was coming?
What I'm going to say is this: that not that I didn't like the episode.
Oh no, we've lost him. His reception. Sorry, your reception went out for a second there. You were saying the episode was amazing. Sorry.
I do love the episode.
Oh, good. That's good.
The thing is, did we need it? No. Did it really throw that much more light onto the personalities of the lead characters? No, not really. It gave us a little bit of their backgrounds, a little bit of their motivation. I just didn't think that it was a necessary episode. I thought it was a brilliantly written episode and a brilliantly directed episode. I noticed that in particular, the camera work in this was really quite frenetic, actually.
Yeah.
More frenetic than it has been of late. But Although I think it may, in my opinion, it may have been an unnecessary episode, and maybe slightly driven by, dare I say it, ego. Maybe I can't really say that for certain, but I just felt that it kind of interrupted my flow. But I love the episode. I think it's an absolutely outstanding piece of work. It really is.
Okay, well that's good. I mean, I should add that I don't think you should be having adult party fun time with your right hand when you're watching this episode. I don't want it to be interrupting your flow. My counter argument to it is, I mean, none of the things that we find out about the characters are surprising, but I think the things we find out are great. It's just all great, nice building blocks. But the reason I think this episode happens, and the reason I think somebody in the writer's room came up with it, was because they probably had already written episode 10, where Gilroy comes back. And don't forget, season 1 of The Shield, whilst it did okay, a lot of people arrived at The Shield in season 2, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people only started watching it from season 2. I think it probably got about 40% of its viewers on the second season. And I think they were like, okay, we're bringing Gilroy back in, and it's a major thread through episode 10.
Yeah.
What if people haven't seen this? Is before streaming. This is even before the DVD releases had happened. It was in this weird limbo period where videos were stopping being produced. DVD box sets were coming out, but they took time. Season 1 of the Shield box set wasn't out yet. So I think they partly did this episode to remind everybody who Gilroy was, remind everybody of the relationship between Vic and Gilroy. And then you had episode 10. So I think part of it was kind of a bit of a reminder. And if that was a motivator for it, I'm okay with that, because I think it contained lots of fun stuff.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you on that, because I thought exactly the same thing. I thought, this does feel like a little bit of a prompt episode. It's, prompting us of the relationship between Vic and Gilroy. But it still kind of felt like an unnecessary episode. It didn't need to happen. Am I glad that it was made? Absolutely. Pleased as punch that we got this episode. But the whole season could have gone on without this episode. It's the one episode you can subtract this episode, set this aside, and still carry on with the rest of the series without having seen this episode. It's not something that's going to be that integral to what's about to go on, really. But having said all that, like I said, I love it. I absolutely love this episode. It's
having said all that, you enjoyed seeing Lem's arse, so there's that. All right, Northern, your thoughts. Don't let Inside Man influence you in any way.
No, he makes some good points, but I do like this episode. I thought it was real good seeing where these characters sort of like who these characters were before the events of the first episode. It was kind of cool seeing Vic was maybe a little bit of an honest cop, maybe a little bit kind of an idealist, and he got a taste of his little taste of corruption, and he did start to like it, and he did start to think, maybe we're onto something here, being dodgy little bastards.
Well, there was that line, wasn't there? That was surprisingly easy.
It was, yeah. And it kind of shows that, this guy's always been a sociopath. He just needed that. He just needed waking up to it. That's all. He needed that. He needs something to wake him up to that character trait. And I do like seeing Tom Gannon as well. He completely undermines Dutch. He encourages the other guys to bully him. They humiliate him. And the guy's been looking up to him as well. But even Dutch is kind of a little bit selfish and ambitious. Is like, I only listen to the big cases. I haven't heard about you, Claudette. And once again,
he's like, why haven't I heard of you? And he's
I know.
like, should you have?
Yes, he's kind of trying to kiss up to Tom a little bit to sort of like feather his career a tiny bit, but then he sees how great Claudette is and he wants to be partners with her, and he realizes, and it's not just that, he realizes they do work well together, better than
I
he
think
probably
you can
would have
tell
done with Tom.
he's going to learn from her.
I know.
That's what it is for me.
He
You
is
can see that in
he,
his
he
head.
is a bit of I mean, I think we had it set up in episode 1 of season 1. You know that Dutch is a little bit of a tryhard.
Yeah,
he is a tryhard, and it doesn't matter. Having seen this episode, I still get the same impression of it doesn't change my perception of any of the characters whatsoever.
No. I think it reinforces and underscores everything you already know about them.
Yeah, and it builds up the animosity that Vic has towards Acevedo as well. And I like the fact that Claudette is kind of the same as well, because, and it makes sense to her character. She's just someone trying to do her job. She doesn't care about being a face in the paper. I mean, when she cracks the case, she doesn't fucking belittle Tom in any way. She says, "Oh, we all did it," even though it was really them two that made the arrest.
Yeah,
and I love that about this character. And it adds a little bit of context, even though you kind of already got it anyway. But I think it was just a nice little break from the last fucking storyline, and now it's like giving us a little breather for a while before we start heading back into all the crap that happened last time.
Good point. Yeah. Breather, I think, is a great way to describe it.
But there was no point of this episode where I was bored.
No, it's a good episode.
Because I found I was studying it even harder because it's set in the past. I was looking for like details and nuance, and I think it was really clever that actually if Gannon hadn't said what he'd said about Dutch, I think it would have taken Vic a lot longer to start bullying him. And I think like Gannon is like an older version of Vic, basically.
Oh yeah, and Vic obviously looks up to him a little bit as well, because he's the seasoned detective, and he is very charismatic. He is very charming in a kind of an asshole way. But I like the fact that Vic is willing to sort of give him a break. He's had a hard time, and Tom's like, nah, and Vic just kind of laughs along with him, doesn't he?
This was a good scene as well. Things like this I thought were good. Like Julian insists on paying for his sandwich and coffee. And the guy like looks at Danny like, is this guy for real? And he's like, because it's against department policy. Good to see you, Average Asia. Thank you for joining in. Let us know your comments about the show or this episode.
I really like that. It's also shows that just how great Vic and Shane is, how much these two really need each other. I mean, if the wrestler strike team kind of got killed and Shane survived, they would still be okay, because Shane's kind of a cowboy and he needs Vic to sort of reel him back a little.
By the way, this picture of Dutch here, this is an accurate representation of Inside Man's face when I remind him he was supposed to take me out for lunch last year.
True.
Yeah. It's very similar to that. Great. Okay. Darth Plato, welcome back. Your overall thoughts about the episode?
I didn't like this episode. I thought it was one of the weaker episodes of the series.
Boo this man!
I can't hear Darth. I can't hear him. Is he still here? I don't hear him.
I can hear him. Sadly. Yeah, okay, you didn't like it. Why didn't you like it?
Well, let me start off being positive. All right. So Inside Man already touched on this a little bit about the interconnectedness and the thing they're touching down on. They did it in a way that it seemed well. Choices that impact presage the future, like Gilroy getting Vic the job, who ultimately brings Gilroy down. There's a certain presaging the future there. But Dutch choosing Claudette over Gannon, that's the best part of the episode. For me, that was the best part of the episode. But I really didn't think that we needed to see the story as Vic Mackey begins, because it just struck me as well, I don't want to say unnecessary, because it was worse than that. My problem with this episode isn't that it's incompetent. I mean, I don't know anything about making a TV show, but I think it's a matter of verisimilitude. This takes place 14 months before episode 1, season 1, and I just don't buy that. Julian shouldn't even be there at all. Terry shouldn't even be there. They had Terry there. So what? He was on the striking for 14 months and never did a buzz? That doesn't make any sense.
I was actually going to ask that as well, because
now,
is that the guy who got shot in the face?
I'm going to address that. So it says 14 months earlier. That's literally like before the barn is even got anybody in it. I think this episode takes place over a period of several weeks or months. So you're getting a snapshot of stuff that happened in that earlier period.
Right.
But
It's 14 months from the current narrative. It's not 14 months from the pilot.
Yeah.
14 months from the current narrative.
It's 14
where
months.
we are at.
Right. It's 14 months from the midpoint of season 2.
Correct.
So this would also be only a few. That would work out as only a few weeks before.
Okay, I'm willing to concede
episode
that.
1. And I also do think this episode isn't set over 48 hours. You can tell because of some of the different scenes and transitions and things that happen. So,
let me say this. I don't think that the whole angle about just this once and Shane saying, "Oh yeah, that was pretty easy." That it's like the dark side, the quick and easy path sort of mentality. I think these guys were bad guys to begin with. I mean, by bad guys, I don't mean they were shooting people like shooting cops. I mean, I think that pursuing power and pursuing this kind of police work, I think it attracts people that are kind of amenable to that to begin with. Claudette isn't amenable to that, which is why she doesn't go that route. Neither is Dutch, which is why we saw in the previous show he backs down from that. But Shane and Vic, I think these are hardcore guys. I don't buy the fact that they're perfectly good cops going in there and then we're just going to do it once and everything went to hell. Gilroy even says that. Gilroy even said that they have a spotty jacket.
I was going to say I disagree that's what we're presented with, because that's highlighted by 2 lines. The line you just said by Gilroy, and then Acevedo has a scene with Gilroy where he says, "I've asked around about this guy. Loads of people won't work with him." So Vic has already got a reputation as a plainclothes detective, but he strong arms Gilroy into backing him to get that position. And it's important that happens, because that's why he's so indebted to Gilroy, which is important in terms of where this episode comes in relation to episode 10, because it's reminding and underscoring to us just how substantial and important that debt is. So I think it's all logical. These guys were not squeaky clean. This barn project, right, is set up to be like, on the one hand, it's an experimental project, it's new, but Acevedo intends for it to be a shining beacon, kick ass. On the other hand, if you read between the lines in a lot of the scenes, what's actually happened here is a whole load of troublemakers from other departments have been sent here that nobody wants.
Correct.
Dutch didn't even apply for this position. He got transferred here from Sunset because the people at Sunset didn't like him. So we find that out. There's loads of things like that. Vic is the only one who really wants the job.
But do we really? Is it something that we really need to know? Do we really need to know the background?
No.
Because we hit the ground
don't,
running.
But I still think we're here. I think it's all quite interesting stuff. You know,
it's interesting. I mean, I think this is more of a curiosity episode. It just satisfies a little bit of curiosity to me rather than anything else. Because we hit the ground running on episode 1 of season 1, the actual pilot episode, and we got a great sense of the characters, their surroundings and their motivations from day one, from the moment we saw the first episode. And I do feel that this is slightly unnecessary, but I did enjoy it. I'm not going to lie, I did enjoy it. Sorry, Darth.
Okay.
Sorry for.
All right. Well, that's all right. You've now used the last of Darth's time. So Toxic.
Sorry, Darth. I apologise.
Toxic. What's your overview?
Listen, I respect everybody here, but you guys are so Lance is so on point, and the rest of you guys are really. I'm sorry.
I had my finger hovering over the eject button, but it's good.
Listen, this is a narrative and storytelling called boomerang storytelling, and if used properly, as this is, it can give you a sense of where the characters are. It can kind of take that release valve, because the narrative for this season has been on this, just going towards the money train, Vic and his crew trying to stay out of trouble, yada yada. It's this pressure cooker has built up and built up, and as Lance pointed out, we have to have some sort of exposition and a reminder of Vic's loyalty and love originally for Gilroy and where all of these pieces came from. And in boomerang storytelling, it gives that pressure valve a little bit of a release, and it gives you a chance to back off from the primary narrative, go back a little bit. It's almost like an interlude, for lack of a better term. But it's an interlude that is in service of the story, in service of the story moving forward.
I don't think it does serve the story.
Well, if you let me, I'll explain why it does.
Yeah,
so
explain. Put Inside Man in his place.
Yeah. You have a couple of things happening here all at once. You have the fact that we get to see the juxtaposition of what Vic and Shane were as to what they are now. You see Vic and Shane are kind of like Claudette and Dutch at the opening of this. We see how this satellite precinct was formed. In Iraq, we'd call it a COS, a contingency outpost site. So the reason why you have all these pieces being maneuvered into this way is to give us an idea of why they're going to make the choices moving forward. Because without spoiling the rest of the series, as I know most of us have seen this, I think we've all seen the entirety of the series. Maybe we have,
no.
But without any spoilers for our audience or anybody else, the rest of the narrative moving forward all the way into the series finale takes no more breaks. There is no more. This is your chance to take a breath, get caught up, and we can see where these characters are. And I disagree that these guys were always bad guys. I think they were pushed into a certain position and at some point made a choice and said, if we want to keep our jobs, if we want to move forward, we're going to have to take a little bit of a shortcut. Nobody's hands are clean within this. Everybody's got Aceveda was pushing his agenda. With Terry, it gives us a little bit more light onto exactly how duplicitous that actually was. It shows that Vic and his wife, despite where they're at now, had a great loving marriage. She supported him.
We knew that. We knew that.
She supported him. She wanted him. I mean, put that against where she's at now. Vic, you work too many hours. I mean, you just put that to, certain women are always never going to be happy no matter what you do. But at the time that this stuff was going on, we kind of got this in media res. We got it in the middle of the story with the pilot episode. This gives us a chance to kind of pull the brakes a little bit. You could call it a candy episode, and you wouldn't even be wrong for calling it that. But it gives us a chance to bring the narrative to a head. I love boomerang storytelling right before we really hit full tilt boogie on the rest of the story, because it gives you so much more context to these characters.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
Inside Man agrees. That's all we need.
I agree that boomerang storytelling is great when it's done well. I don't think this was done particularly well, and I genuinely do not believe that that any of the context that we have been shown in this episode haven't already been shown in previous episodes in season 1 and all the way through this season 2. Every single one of those contexts have been shown already, and this is where I would agree with both yourself and Northern in saying that this is a breather episode. This is the episode where we take a breath, but it doesn't shake anything up. It doesn't give me any context that I didn't already know, that I wasn't already aware of.
Well, I'll give you this. I mean, that may or may not be true. I disagree respectfully, but like for instance, I do a stream with Nadia, horror with Nadia, and we do Stranger Things, and there's a compendium book that shows you know, what the little boy that's missing in the first season, what he's up to. And it's not anywhere in the narrative of the show. It's something you have to go get separately, which I'm sure that was their idea, but it's extremely brilliant storytelling, and it adds so much more to what you are seeing now. And
or some might call it a cash cow.
Maybe, but I think when Lance says flashback storytelling, and this is the best he's ever seen, I couldn't agree more. This is one of my favorite episodes of the series, and I think it is literally the best flashback storytelling. And I've even co-opted this form of boomerang storytelling in my own novel because I like it so much, and I think it really services the story for the slide down from the
you
penultimate.
Put that on the front of the book in brackets, inspired by the Shield,
maybe
not the Inside Man, close brackets.
I do wish that it had told me something that I didn't already know. I just wish it had, and it didn't.
or go against.
I didn't need any big revelations in it. I liked it was mainly little details for me. I mean, although you see Vic and his wife, they've always been in a constant state of flux or stress. I've never seen a moment where they still had the hots for each other.
Yeah.
Up until now. So it's interesting to think that a few weeks before episode 1, their home life, was still functioning in a relatively good place. And he was the one who flagged up the issues of, oh, well, I'm going to be away from home more. I don't know. And she was the one who okayed that.
I like seeing Vic a little bit on the back foot with Aceveda, because when we start the show, he is such the alpha character in the show. He even taunts in front of the entire, and it's a great callback to that, where Aceveda kind of checks Vic in front of the entire force. Well, a reverse of that in the beginning was Vic doing that. I don't even listen to you on Cinco de Mayo. We get the reverse of that here. So you can kind of see how it, and had it started out with this, I think it would have lost its impact. I think something like this, we need to start in media res. We need to start in the middle of the story, like we did with the pilot. And I think, and then of course the logistical thing being the trivia that the makeup people were trying to figure out how they were going to handle Ronnie being, the burnt victim. And I like that too. I like that little trivia bit. Really the only flaw this has is the fact that Danny's got her chevrons on this and she didn't have them in the pilot episode. That's really it. There's no other, this is a flawless episode in my opinion.
Another thing I really liked about it, which you kind of touched upon briefly earlier, is in this episode, when they're detectives, Shane and Vic are actually on equal footing.
Yes.
And Shane is a better cop in this episode than he is later, because he comes to lean on Vic once he's in a team that Vic's in command of. In some ways, that undermines and stagnates his own career and his own.
I got to do something. I got to do something now I don't want to do. I'm gonna have to eat some shit now.
Yeah,
Lance, after rewatching this episode, I think you're right and I was wrong. I think Vic had some kind of thing with Connie.
I was going to bring that up actually. If you watch that scene,
I know.
If you watch that scene,
I know
when he goes back and talks to her, there's a moment between them.
Know.
You can see it.
I saw it. I agree. I was wrong. I was wrong. Listen, I'm not flawless. Okay.
No, that's all right. No one can be as good as me on this. So
I prefer not to be told that. I prefer not. I prefer to make my own mind up and interpret that myself.
Well, unfortunately, this is my channel, and you are being told. So you're just gonna have to.
I do actually live with Inside Man on this a little bit though, but I do like the fact that Vic has always been a sociopath. He just needed that little opportunity for that character trait to come out. The moment he fucking does his one little act of corruption, he's enjoying it. He's getting into it.
Willing to do it again.
It's like the murderer that says, "Yes, I killed him, and I do it again."
Sorry, Darth. Go ahead.
What was the point of the showing Vic with Joe Clark and Partners? It seems like Vic learned to take shortcuts from Joe Clark. If you watch this episode, you make it sound like this is when it started. But this
without giving too much away. Yeah, to answer that, without giving too much away for the entirety of the series, for anyone who hasn't watched it, there is a reason why certain cops can be good cops in certain places and shouldn't be cops in other places. Vic would have been perfectly serviceable and would have never gone down the bad road had he been kept. And you could headcanon and probably quite correctly understand that maybe Vic at one point was a SWAT guy, or he was a special tactics guy, or something like that, and then he overstepped because he has a tendency to do that, so they pigeonholed him into regular suit and tie detective grade thing. And that's a place where you want to keep certain people, because certain people, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Making him the strike team leader was, ultimately a mistake. Regardless of the results he got, it's the way in which he does it. So I think, it definitely informs upon the entirety of the series without giving too much away. Because
my take on it up to this point is that while he was working with Joe Clark, who's just retired prior to this, I think he probably took money on the occasional bust. They went in.
Sure.
Drug dealers, there's 10 grand there. I'll take a couple of K.
Yeah.
But he'd never framed anyone. He'd never planted evidence. So
Right.
I think he'd done illegal things like taking money, maybe taking drugs, that kind of thing. Helped himself where he could to augment his lifestyle, because they're already living in the same house.
Right.
So he's already obviously got a second source of income.
It's why the episode with Dutch being in a position to frame that overweight killer, it's why that was so important that he not cross that line. There's a movie called Insomnia with Al Pacino and his protege.
Oh God, we need to do that.
Has his protege has an opportunity to hide some evidence, and at the end he says, no, you gotta fight, don't do that. Once you cross that line, there's no coming back. So
that's a good movie. Puts you off going anywhere.
Even at the risk of his name being besmirched.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, that's general chat about the episode. But I'm glad that we agree it's a good episode. And also, this is the first time the strike team put their artwork on the map. Okay, let's talk about cast. As per usual, we're going to talk about guest cast first. So there's a few guest actors in this episode. Probably most prominent is Ray Baker, who plays Detective Tom Gannon. He's a jobbing actor that I've seen in tons of stuff. He's been around a fair old while. He is still going. He has got 110 credits on IMDb. I saw him in Animal Kingdom. And funnily enough, I watched Total Recall, RoboCop, and Starship Troopers yesterday. What a triple bill.
I thought I recognised him. Yeah, he's the Recall guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in. Yeah, he works at Recall. He's the guy who's like the salesman.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's done loads of stuff. Animal Kingdom is another good show. Don't know if we'll ever do a review of it on this level, but if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend it. It's a well-written show. It's pretty gripping, especially the first 3 seasons. 44 Minutes, the North Hollywood Shootout, by the way, is a good TV movie about that sort of bank robbery where the 2 guys went in with the AK-47s. It's all kind of filmed. That kind of loosely inspired the movie Heat. But that's a pretty good TV movie. That I think you can get it on YouTube. So I've seen him in that. I've seen him in a load of other stuff. And as you can see, he's been in quite a few things. That's right. He was the captain of the 747 in Executive Decision. That is a good movie. Really do like that film with Kurt Russell. And plus, Steven Spielberg gets killed. So Ray Baker.
Sorry,
nice
Steven
to see him.
Spielberg.
Not Steven Spielberg.
Seagal.
Thank you. Yeah, they look so similar. They look so similar. It's easy to make that mistake. Also returning is Reed Diamond, playing Terry Crowley. He's still very much a working actor. Just done a couple of episodes of Law and Order: Organized Crime. He's in the new TV series of The Mosquito Coast. He's been in Better Call Saul. He was in 69 episodes of Homicide: Life on the Street. That's a great show. I actually just in 2021, sort of in the second lockdown, I rewatched the whole thing of Homicide. It's such a great show. So he's back. He's only got a couple of scenes. It was quite nice to see how he got kind of talked into that job. Kathy Cahill Ryan is back as Corinne. We have Walter Jones back as Rondell Robinson. We've talked about him before. He's still very much a working actor, also a producer now, I think. And were there any other supporting cast in this episode we wanted to mention? I think it's really, between them and John Deal, of course, as Ben Gilroy. I do love John Deal, great actor. Many people will remember him from driving around the bug van in Miami Vice. I'd give it to Ray Baker for me as the strongest supporting actor. It's between him and John Deal, really. We've got Connie. Connie's back as well. Jamie Ann Orman. But I don't think she really got to show her range of acting in this episode, and we'd already seen it because here her character's much cleaner. She's kind of more at the beginning of her drug addiction. Inside Man, who would you like to flag out?
Gilroy, actually.
John Deal.
Yeah, I thought he was. I thought he was really good. I mean, every time he's been in this, whichever episode he's been in, I've always enjoyed watching him. I think he is a really good actor. I think he's a really fine actor. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the best role of his career that I've seen. I think I remember the first thing I ever saw him in was Stripes with Bill Murray. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah,
I remember him.
Yeah, he's my friends call me Cooter. It's because I like to drive fast cars. Something like that. That's his line.
Yeah.
And then there's him and there's John Candy in that. My friends call me Utz. I don't know if you noticed. I'm kind of big. It's in that same scene where they're kind of going around telling each other their life story. It's a great little scene. But that was the first thing I saw him in. Yeah, I mean, he's still a jobbing actor now. I wonder what he's done recently. Let's have a quick look. Dark Winds. Anybody watch that?
No.
Yeah, it's a good show.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Two Navajo police officers in the 1970s forced to challenge their spiritual beliefs when they search for clues in double murder case. I'm in. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Like the sound of that.
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds very good.
You recommend Toxic?
I do. Big time recommend.
Oh, it's got one of the actors. I just seen him in a still. Just wonder if that's the guy I'm thinking. Hang on, let me look at the photograph again.
I got pushed to that show when the young man from 1923 passed away out here in Lawrence, Kansas, and I was trying to get some background. Apparently, he was supposed to have been on that show and was supposed to star on it before he passed away.
He passed away?
I mean, I believe he was unalived, but I was never allowed on the investigation. So,
which actor from 1923 was that?
Cole Brinks Plenty. He's a Lawrence native from out here, from out my way.
Shit.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, he must have been in his 20s, right?
Yeah, he's very young, very promising actor. He went to Haskell University out here. Was big. He was big with the indigenous people out here.
This actor here, who's playing the Indian, I've seen him in loads of other things.
Yeah, Lots of stuff.
He's really, really good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we might have to. That's one to
on Amazon.
To watch.
Yeah, on Amazon. If you have Amazon, it's a good show.
I will. Northern. Who did you want to talk about?
I love John Deal, but I did kind of like Ray Barker on this as well. It's because he kind of brings Dutch and Claudette together in his own kind of stupid, pompous way. Yeah, he has two cause and effects as a result of being on the episode. One is that he actually starts the bullying for Dutch, but he also ultimately gets Dutch his partner, which is probably the best thing that ever happens to him. So there's that. And he's kind of fun to watch as well. He's pretty good at playing a sleazy bastard when he wants to. So I do like a fun sleazy bastard.
Yeah, I've never seen him. I've seen him in lots of things. I've seen him in things like Law and Order, playing lawyers and stuff like that. I can't ever recall him giving a weak performance.
Yeah. Look how much he owns that futuristic Total Recall show, man.
No, I do like him. He's only got a small role in Total Recall, but he's very memorable. As is the hot secretary that works for him. So, and
it's a pity we didn't get the secretary the way she's described in the novella,
right?
In the story,
she was a hot black chick. It worked for me. Ray Barker was in Silverado. This is the first time I'm realizing he played Kendrick.
Damn,
Silverado. I never.
Right, okay.
Do you know
I
what?
gotta rewatch Silverado. I haven't
because
seen
he's so covered up with the beard.
Yeah.
The penny never dropped that it was this actor. Oh my God. And that's one of my favorite films of like all time ever.
That's a great actor that can disappear into a role.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I mean, he also does a very kind of old school. A lot of things change when my daddy died. He's kind of it does one of those kind of accents where it's very different from his own voice. Yeah, he's great in Kendrick in Silverado, which, by the way, is my favorite Western of all time. So read about it in Silver Screen Journeys, available now on Amazon. Okay, cool. So good choice, Ray Barker. Darth, who you going for?
I gotta go with Connie.
Connie.
Yeah. This of all the scenes in the episode, that whole thing was hard to sit through. I understand Vic wanted to move and do something.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
I thought that was definitely one of the more gripping scenes of the episode, and Connie coming back, it's really kind of heartbreaking. So I thought that was done really well, and that's why I'm going to Connie.
I think also the thing that's really heartbreaking about it is that for her, she kind of takes it all in her stride. Like she comes back like it's nothing.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
And that's obviously like, so she's obviously been through it before. It's not the first.
Except this is my lot. This is my lot.
Yeah.
I'm accepting it. Yeah.
Yeah, that which makes that scene all the more powerful. It's not the first time she's been through that. And also in that scene, I'm glad you brought that scene up. Shane is the better cop in that scene.
Yep.
Which we don't see very often.
Yeah, I was going to mention that myself.
Really emotional. Vicky's getting really emotional, isn't he? He's he's willing to jump in there and batter this guy, but not
which again reinforces the fact that they've had at some point in the past. I'm telling you.
Denying.
He's so emotionally involved. Vic doesn't normally get that emotionally involved. I should actually also give this actor a shout out. He was good.
Is it the social worker? Yes.
Richard Yannigas. Well, not really a social worker. He's the broker, isn't he? He's the broker of with the kidnappers, but
he's the facilitator.
He really facilitates the kidnapping.
Facilitator's a good word.
I think he's partly responsible.
Look at what those people are doing in this story is no different from what the Barbary Pirates did. He's facilitating this. He's making it easier for this sort of thing to take place.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about using that example. I'm a history guy, and I was just talking about this the other day, so it's fresh in my mind. But
no, that's fine.
That was a really awful time period during the time of the Barbary pirates, and they would have people just like this. And the Americans were having a big problem with it, like early when they just became a country and they were sailing to Europe and trying to get the American people used to that America was an independent country. And the Barbary pirates preyed on them, and they took captives. And they had people like this in those days. He's like, yeah, how much money you got? Yeah, come on, give me your money. We'll do an exchange. And so this is back when the founding fathers were still running the government, and they agreed to pay the money. Because we can't just leave the people over there, so justice demands that we pay the money. So what happened? The Barbary pirates escalated the attack on U.S. shipping by a factor of 6 and raised the ransom demand by a factor of 4. You can't deal with people like this. You have to punch them in the face. I'm sorry about going off on the tangent about that.
No, I agree. This guy he's extorting everybody's food stamps or stealing them. Cesar Garcia, which is a pretty pitiful story. Carlton Johnson is good as well as the family man who steals the food, because you really feel for him. You know, when they turn up at his very small apartment, he's got like 6 kids. You know, so and then we've got Deo Adady, who's playing the main drug dealer on the street, who Vic is about to remove and put in prison, thus setting up Rondell for season 1 as his main guy, or one of his main guys. But yeah, we should give Richard Venegas a little shout out because I thought he was very good. Tox, did you want to shout out a supporting actor?
That was my pick, Richard Venegas. I thought he did a great job, and you can kind of jump to either, depending on how you look at it, you can either come at it from the, if the facilitator wasn't facilitating these things, that he was making it too easy on these people. But you can also look at it the opposite way and say that, like a Mayor of Kingstown type character, these evils are going to happen regardless. And maybe he's just making it a little bit, just kind of trying to keep the peace between what's going to happen regardless. So it's pretty interesting. I would have liked to have had more of that, and more, this guy be a recurring character that comes back that has to, negotiate between. I always find those bagmen type characters pretty fascinating.
Yeah, no, fair play. Okay, lead cast then, guys. Of the lead characters, whose episode was this? Difficult one to pick out one person. Inside Man, who's your choice?
Acevedo.
Benito Martinez.
Yeah, I think I thought he was really good in this. I like the way he I don't know, his personality, the character really did come out, and regardless of everything that I've said, my criticism of the episode, I still think that he was the best thing in it. I really do.
Fab stuff.
Great
Northern.
I think I will go for Acevedo because I don't think I've gone for him enough. I was almost going to say Vic Mackey, but yeah, this is basically Acevedo really thinking that, yes, I'm going to really make something of myself here. This is really going to benefit me. And he's really not thinking ahead of the consequences that's going to fall on his lap later on.
Yeah. So, okay, good choice, Darth.
I'm gonna go Shane.
Yeah, it's a good episode for Shane because we do see him in a very different context. I can see why you would pick him for this one, actually.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the most competent we've ever seen him, and you could sort of argue if at this point he'd been reassigned away from Mackey or he wasn't put on the strike team, I wonder what would have happened to his career. I don't think he would have ever been an outstanding detective, and I think he still would have made mistakes, but would he have got as corrupt? I don't know. So interesting, because up to this point I think Shane has probably been relatively clean. He may have also taken the odd bit of money in a bust. But I don't
Corrupt,
think...
corrupt, I don't know. Maybe not, but definitely an a-hole.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Definitely an a-hole. Toxic.
I agree with Darth for different reasons, but I agree. Shane, definitely. I think this is a different. I think another reason why this episode's important is because we get up to this point. We've always seen Shane as this kind of out of control cowboy, and this he's extremely competent, and like you said, Lance, more so than Vic. Mostly just because he doesn't have a personal stake in the situation with Connie. So, but I mean, he does his job and he does it correctly. And for what we have to see of Shane in the next season and the season to follow, he's sort of a hodgepodge of those two things: the wild, eccentric cowboy that makes these silly decisions, but also this guy that's pretty competent in the right circumstances. So, but I agree, he'd have been better off not being assigned to the strike team.
Yeah,
he's the Georgia Peach.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, I wanted to hear what everybody else said before I voiced my own opinion. My pick, and this might be the first time I've picked him, is also Walton Goggins, because I, for all the reasons that have been mentioned, I like the fact that as an actor, you could see that he'd really thought about, okay, what would my character have been like a few weeks before the barn opened? Who was he? How was he different? And the fact that him and Vic are on much more even footing, it's really subtle. It's very, very subtle what he does with this episode, but there's a lot of nuance there that makes him a markedly different character to the person we've come to know now. And I really like that he didn't make him so different that we didn't believe it, but he made him different enough so that we could see, his life could have gone such a different direction. So yeah, Walton Goggins is my pick of the week for the lead cast. Let's move on to favorite scenes, favorite line of the episode. Sorry, just also another important plot point, guys. I can't believe none of you mentioned it, but probably the most important piece of information that's revealed is that it's Detective Tom Gannon who is responsible for destroying and blocking the toilet in the gents. Very important piece of information. And so now we know who did the crime. But yeah, it's interesting as well that toilet, this is when it blows up. And okay, let's assume that this is, say, 4 weeks before the pilot episode, maybe a month before the pilot episode, 14 months ago. And that 3 times in the episode, the guy says, "I'll have it fixed tomorrow." I thought it's quite funny the way that they underscored that.
Now I know why this episode was made.
Yeah, see that Inside Man. That's such an important plot.
That I think is the only thing that really gave us some kind of insight into.
Yeah,
yikes.
My favorite line in this episode, I mentioned it already, is when Vic says, "Just this once." And I often pick lines that are funny or character revealing or whatever, but for me, that line is such a crucial narrative milestone, because we know it's not going to be just this once, and this is the point where they all take a big step over that thin blue line. That whole scene as well is excellent, but my favorite scene is actually the scene where Dutch asks Claudette if he can be her partner. That's my favorite scene. And CCH Pounder understates her reaction, is beautifully understated. She replies like she doesn't give a shit what he does, but actually we can tell she'd much rather have him as her partner than Gannon, who's a bit of a knob end. and but she doesn't give anything away, but it's there. If you watch it in the scene, it's all there. CCH Pounder, acting masterclass every time you watch her scene. So that's my favorite line, and that's my favorite scene in Co-Pilot. Inside Man.
Excuse me. I don't have a particular favorite line, if I'm completely honest. For me, there was nothing that really stood out in terms of lines. But my favorite scene was, I think it would have to be with Shane being the sensible one and restraining Dutch and restraining Vic.
Vic, yeah, that's a good scene.
I just think it was really nice to see that slight little bit of role reversal there.
Yeah, shoe on the other foot, so to speak.
Yeah, I'd like that. I think it's a really, really good scene, actually.
Yeah. So, okay, Northern.
Credit is overrated by C.H.H. Powder as Claudette, because it just goes to show what a really good character is and how much of an honest cop she is. She's not out to get her face in the papers, unlike Aceveda, and she's not out to take shortcuts the way Vic and his strike team does. She's just trying to do a job, and she's just trying to be a good person about it as well. She is a good person, and she doesn't need the attention. Just cracking the case and helping people out seems to give her enough satisfaction. And she doesn't humiliate the Gannon guy, even though she has every reason to. She takes the more dignified path and kind of saves him the humiliation, and it really made me like her as well. And which counts as my favourite moment in it.
Okay, cool. Darth?
There's no line that really jumps out. I guess that off the top of my head, I guess it's the line that Vic says to where he says this is a no-lose situation, where he's rationalizing the whole thing and getting him talking his way onto the strike team, and John and McGilroy seals the warrant. He seals his own fate by promoting Vic. He's sealing his own fate. As far as the best scene, yeah, it's the scene with Vic, Shane, and Connie. I think that is. I'm not so sure I would quite characterize it as a role reversal where Shane's being the reasonable one. He's not more reasonable because he doesn't want to go in there and punch the guy in the face. Look at what he's saying. He's saying, let her be a hoe. He's a hoe. Let her do her hoe thing. That's really what she's saying. That's really what Shane is saying.
Yeah. Which is an area of his skill sets.
So he's found a way to take the high ground while being an a-hole at the same time.
Okay. All right. Tox.
So favorite scene would be there's a moment after they crack the case that Aceveda and after they both made the positive bust and all that kind of stuff, and Aceveda kind of looks at Vic and Vic looks at him, and they have this moment where this thing could have gone a completely different way, knowing what we know now. Like if they'd have just set their egos aside, but too much has already happened. Aceveda backed Vic way too hard into a corner, and Vic had to kind of compromise himself. So now he's like, nah, F this guy. Like, I'm not going to. And then Aceveda feeling like he kind of got short shucked a little bit. He's like, nah, F this guy. But there was this moment when, imagine what a dynamic duo these two could have made. And the show is so brilliant in giving you that with saying, this is what might have been. This is the kind of watershed moment where, these two could have really teamed up and been this unstoppable duo between the two of them, but they just let their egos and their own personal vendettas get in the way. So that's that. And I'm so glad we rewatched this for this.
Yeah, that's that scene just before the scene with Gilroy where he comes in, can we just enjoy the win?
Right.
It's that bit, isn't it? And and they're sort of kind of almost sizing each other up in victory, and they could have said, hey, we worked that well together. But
either one of them could have just put their hand out and said, hey, look, I was being a dick, my bad, listen, let's start over. I'm going to help you, you help me, and let's make this thing happen. But instead they decide to make it adversarial and pretty much just keep it that way. And all that does is drag everybody down. Favorite line, completely just like right off the rip. You'd think driving a Ford Escort would disqualify you from being carjacked.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one.
I laughed out loud watching
That's a popular line in the UK.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Time to give our ratings out of 10. So I'll go first. For me, this episode's a 10. No brainer. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Inside Man, is it a 9.5 or 10 for you?
No, I just want to say I don't like being ahead of the story. I don't like being ahead of, knowing more about what's going on than the actual characters do. So for that, I can only really give it a 6.
9. Sorry, what was that? What was that? A what?
6.
9. Okay. Northern, what's yours out of 10?
Give it a 9. I give it a 9. I mean, there is some arguments that, okay, even if we didn't have this episode, we'd still get these characters, but it is nice to sort of just get a little insight into them a little bit more.
Yeah, I just think it was really fun. It's kind of really fun to see this early stuff.
Yeah, some bits made me laugh, like Jules seeing Lemmy's ass and he's like trying to look away because he's
well, that wasn't where I was going, but okay. Yeah. I did laugh out loud 3 times, but that was not one of the moments. I thought that was quite funny as well with Julian. That moment with Julian,
It cracks me up. See what I did there?
Yeah, I did. I saw you got straight to the bottom of that storyline.
Yeah. All right, let's not make an ass of ourselves.
All right, okay. To stop bringing the stream down to a dumb deal. Darth, what's your rating out of 10 for this?
Well, I'll tell you what, I was going to say 6, but I was afraid that you would press the ejector seat button, and I was going to say 7, but since Inside Man got away with saying 6...
we've lost Darth again.
What?
We lost.
Sorry, what?
I knew you were going to do that.
Signal's very weak today. I don't know what's happening.
Okay, I'll be a little generous. I'll say it's a 7.
Okay, 7. Tox.
As much as I find it very pedantic for everybody to be an echo chamber and everyone to agree, and I respect these other gentlemen, you guys are way wrong. This is one of the best episodes. 10 out of 10. I wish I could give it a higher score.
I agree.
It's so good.
Right. Well, excellent. So with Toxic and myself giving it a 15 out of 10, it scores 50. Excellent. So okay, well, that's episode 9.
This was the most lopsided differences in scoring I think we've had to date. Honestly.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah,
but also where Toxic and I are the most correct.
We should be more like talking heads on TV and just start like, you're completely out of your mind.
All right, let's move on to episode 10, Coyotes. I'm gonna still coughing here. Excuse me. I'm gonna do a similar short recap of the episode. It's directed by David Guggenheim. I wonder if he's a relation of the infamous Guggenheim family. It's written by Shawn Ryan, Reed Steiner, who is a name I'm not sure if we've had on the writing credits before. I don't remember. And Kim Clements again, of course, who is a quality writer. Reed Steiner is a producer on Nash Bridges, has produced 107 episodes of that, and is mainly a producer now on NCIS. He's produced 129 episodes of that. His other writing credits include 2 episodes of Hell on Wheels, which is a show I do really enjoy.
Very good.
He did 36 episodes of Nash Bridges and 5 episodes of The District, which were his main credits before working on this show. And he's, as I said, he's predominantly a producer now, which is where everybody goes who's sensible, because it's less work and more money. So yeah, let's get into this episode. The title Coyotes refers to the name given to people who illegally bring people across the border into the United States from Mexico, currently referred to by the current administration as dead people. But this episode also refers to it for another reason, which is that they're taking somebody back the same way. So the main narrative of this episode is that Ben Gilroy comes back into their life. He has called Corinne on the phone looking for Vic at their home, and he's out on bail, which is the only reason he's out. But what he's done is he's cut off his tag, and basically is now looking to Vic to either get him out of the country or set him up somehow for life. The other narrative that's very dominant in this episode is the report by Miss Calise, who's the independent auditor who's done the report on the barn. She has had her report leaked to the press, and the press has done a story, and the story is very negative. A number of people have been named in the report. We find out who as the episode progresses. So the one who's come out worst of it is Danny. And Danny has been named as being the person responsible for the death of Armadillo in custody for failing to find the knife on another suspect, which of course we know she wasn't responsible for. We know Vic was responsible for that. We know Claudette suspects that. And one of the sort of end narrative in that storyline is Claudette tells Danny of her fears. Danny confronts Vic. Vic tries to lie his way out of it. One of the nice things in this episode is that we know that Danny knows Vic well enough to know when he's telling a porky pie. So even though Vic tries to lie his way out of it, it doesn't work. And she basically says, you know, I don't want anything to do with you. Stay out of my way. So that's that narrative. You have Claudette trying to investigate a fairly simplistic case of somebody who died of a heart attack as a result of a burglary. And Acevedo gets annoyed with her because she should be investigating a more serious crime, but she decides it's almost culpable of murder because the person effectively caused the person to die as a result of the burglary. That brings Acevedo and Claudette into direct conflict, where she calls him out in front of the entire barn because this story has dropped in the paper. It's suggesting that people are going to lose their jobs, that the barn might be shut down as the experiment that it is. So potentially, you know, people might not have a job the next day. And Acevedo's not really addressing that. Gilroy, in the meantime, tries to entrap Vic by wearing a tape recorder. And Gilroy has something of a death wish. It's kind of revealed that he really doesn't want to go to Mexico. And then he also hires a hitman to kill him, which comes out later. So you've got all of that. There's a really key scene later where he's trying to get Vic to admit in the culpability of killing the man on his squad, which Vic doesn't fall for. And then him and Shane find a recording device on him. It's just a recording device for himself. But nevertheless, Gilroy just has a massive, not only is he a massive liability, but he has a massive death wish. There's another subplot around two girls fighting on the street, trying to get attention for a guy they're both seeing, one of whom is heavily pregnant and about to have his baby. This is quite nice in terms of establishing or reinforcing that Danny really wants a kid of her own. She's desperate to have a kid. She's even keen enough to adopt this girl's baby because the girl doesn't want it, because she thinks it's going to make her guy not want her. All kinds of fucked up social thinking there going on. And then ultimately, after a bit of a convoluted plot where Vic tells Acevedo and Miss Khalees that Gilroy has contacted him. He's actually at his apartment, or he's at an apartment, and Vic wanted to bring him in, but he couldn't do it himself. But the reality is they're in the process of smuggling him over to Mexico. We also find out before the end of the episode that Gilroy was in fact the person who leaked the report to the press. I think that was as a mechanism to divert people away from him so that he could facilitate his escape. Also, I think it was just revenge on several people in that department. There's a final scene where Julian tries to get Danny to go to church with him, and says, you know, God remembers you. And she says, really? Because I forgot all about him. Yeah, I kind of relate.
Blasphemy.
I related to that line. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Miss Khalees reports to I think it's the mayor. Is it the mayor that or is that the ultimate police, whoever the head of
chief? He's the chief. Gilroy was a deputy chief. In LA, you have 5 deputy chiefs and 1 main chief.
Yeah, we have the chief. I'm going to talk about that guest actor. He's a fantastic actor, very well known. Yes, we see her have a scene with the chief. This is the scene on screen now. And really that narrative kind of comes to a head because she's embarrassed the department by the story getting leaked, which wasn't her fault. But nevertheless, it does a lot of damage. But she tries to justify that by saying, but all the things that have leaked are true. But she doesn't actually have any evidence. And we can see that she was working directly with Gilroy to try and frame Vic or prove that Vic was culpable in the murder of Terry Crowley, which she fails to do. All she achieves is that the strike team going hard. They bend the rules, but they don't break them. That's really all that's submitted on the tape. This episode is important for another reason. It also introduces us to the character of, is it Tayon or Trayon?
Tavon.
Tavon, thank you. Who joins the team temporarily. There's immediate friction between, well, not really from him, but from Shane, who, you know, I think, whilst I don't think Shane is about to put on a pointy hat and start burning crosses outside people's gardens, and we also know that he likes ladies of a certain persuasion, which comes out later. I think he's immediately intimidated by the presence of a black man on the squad, and that brings out his racist platitudes. Yeah. So and I think that kind of covers everything. And then there's an ultimate sort of butting of heads between Claudette and Vic at the end, and you know, Vic feeling a sense of relief knowing the report isn't going to get him fired, says, look, get used to me being around, I'm not going anywhere. And she doesn't even look at him and just says, neither am I, when she's on the computer. So yeah, really liked this episode, thought it was good. Now I might be remembering this differently, but I could swear that, it's funny how you remember things differently. I could swear that they ended up killing Gilroy because he became such a liability that at some point they killed him. Now that might happen in the future and I'm just remembering it wrong, or I might just be thinking that's definitely what the Inside Man would have done in this situation.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I think it's the episode I think really works. We weren't expecting to see Gilroy again. We weren't expecting to see him out of prison. I like the little scenes with Danny about, you know, her need for wanting a baby, stuff like that is really nice. You know, I just think all the other little scenes are good. But yeah, it's the whole friction with Vic and Claudette really nicely played in this episode. And just, I mean, the extent to which Gilroy takes the piss out of these guys, even though they're trying to help him. he says, "Oh, I'm prepared to go to Mexico and live off beans and bread and beans," and then later, the reason we know that he won't survive very long on $75,000 is because he's such a liability. He'll just waste it all on hookers and drugs and God knows what. He's not going to be frugal with it and make it last. So, this subplot with the case that Claudette's working was kind of neither here nor there. But I think it just reinforces her moral compass. I like the fact that she stood up to Acevedo. That was a key scene for me. And we're introduced to Tavon, played by Brian White. So, yeah, good episode. Liked it. Inside Man.
One of my favorite episodes, I've got to be honest. I absolutely love this episode, especially having Gilroy reintroduced into the mix.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I mean, it was... it was infuriating, really. I think, as most of us did, guessed that he was doing something a little untoward rather than being completely upfront with Vic. I think we kind of got that idea. I certainly got that impression, but wasn't sure whether I was right or wrong. But I thought it was great. Absolutely great, that whole storyline with Gilroy. Really tense. But Claudette, I thought, was outstanding in this. As you said, just reinforcing her sense of morality and her sense of duty more than anything. That, regardless of somebody wagging their finger at her, she's still going to carry on doing her duty, regardless of whether somebody says that she needs to prioritize something else over what she's working on. It's still a case. It's still as important to her as any other case. So there was no kind of rejigging her priorities there. But yeah, that final scene between her and Vic was just, I don't like her for it. I don't like the character for it, because I don't want her to get too close to Vic too soon. I mentioned this last week. I completely understand it. I just don't want everything to be laid bare with Vic too soon. I just want to see more of the corruptness of Vic. I loved it. I absolutely love this episode.
Well, don't worry, you're going to see a lot more of that. So
yeah, I certainly hope so.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, Northern.
Yes, I really like this episode. I like the fact that the ship is sinking and everybody looks like they're about to go overboard with their jobs. And Acevedo's, his ghost is fucking cooked. He's trying to salvage what he can, but it's already decided they want him gone when the time is right. And I also like how Claudette just blows up at Acevedo, because she is right. I mean, this guy has pretty much caused a lot of this to happen in a way with Vic, just for his own bloody career, his own ambitions, and everyone else is going to suffer for it.
Yeah.
And once again, seeing Gilroy back, I mean, this guy is such a weasel. My God, he is terrible. He is a terrible person. Vic has really let him off. Vic has gone soft on him, and how does he pay him back? He tries to bloody snitch on him.
I think that's all reinforced as well by the fact that we've just had an episode when he was a cop in his prime.
Yeah, I know. It just goes to
Thank
show
God for that flashback episode, eh? What genius.
And I do like the fact that Shane is willing to kill him if he goes back on his word.
Yeah.
Because Vic kind of still, I think Vic still feels like he owes him, because he did get him on the strike team, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think that is another reason why maybe the flashback episode was made, because to give a bit more context to this one.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, it's been a while since we've seen him. Second season, people's memories are quite short, and you have to remember this is also in a time pre-streaming. People couldn't just go back and let me remind myself. That feature was not available. when this was made. So
Yeah, and Michael Chiklis's Vic, he is a little bit more sympathetic here because, yeah, he just feels this total betrayal, doesn't he? This guy helped him out, now he's about to break him down and destroy him.
yeah. I mean, that's why I was trying to remember how this episode ended, and I had it in my head that like they took him somewhere to meet the coyote, and then Vic offed him, and it was more a case of right now go and dump his body. But yeah, that's just I'm just thinking that's one probable outcome that could have happened. But
I think what's quite interesting about this is that you're seeing Gilroy as Aceveda could be. Aceveda could be Gilroy at some point.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean even Vic as well. I mean it's the last thing he says to him, isn't it? It's like I forgot the actual quote, but it does sort of mirror what Vic could be if he ends up in Gilroy's position. And he could go one day.
He's got that line as well where he says, "Don't be like me, Vic. Don't get greedy." He says, "I got too greedy. Don't let that happen to you. There's a lesson to be learned here." Which was
that the Carl Weathers episode?
No. He says that line in this episode. So it's the last thing Gilroy says to Vic. I got greedy. I lost everything. There's a lesson there, Vic. That's the exact line I wrote down.
That's it. Yeah.
I got greedy. I lost everything. There's a lesson there. And it's funny because actually, if Vic had listened to that lesson and decided not to go for the money train, a whole load of things would have been different. But hey, so there we are. But me and the Inside Man are still going to hit our money train. Yeah, good. Thanks, Northern. Darth.
Yeah, I wanted to mention briefly that line you're talking about. There's a lesson to be learned here. I got greedy. When I was at my internship, I struck up a conversation with a British gentleman, and I used the turn of phrase "lesson learned." And he said that in the service in the UK, they don't use the term lesson learned. They use the term lesson identified because they know the lesson isn't going to be learned.
Interesting.
Just an acknowledgement more than anything.
Yeah. So I never, that was that was definitely a line that I remember. As far as this episode goes, I think the theme of this episode really should be avoiding fate, avoiding the inevitable. So I'll just, avoiding fate. So there's really four corners to this. So there's Vic, there's Claudette, there's Aceveda, and there's Danny. So for Vic, I think we all know he doesn't want to suffer the same fate as other cops, and he sees himself in a jail costume in the near future, and he wants to avoid the fate of getting busted. Claudette wants to avoid the fate of what happened to the lady that died in the house, because the lady had no contacts, she had no family. And there's a scene where they show Claudette in the deceased house, and there's no line. They just show Claudette just sitting there. And it's definitely a moment of poignant repose. And I think what for Claudette, the significance is she doesn't want to suffer the fate that this old lady has. And that's why you see at the end of the episode, she's trying to get back in touch with her kids.
Yeah, that's very, very important. That's why also she becomes so passionate about solving that case, because she sees part of herself and where maybe she's going.
That's right. Avoiding. She wants to avoid the fate of that deceased lady.
Yeah.
As far as Aceveda goes, and Inside Man already touched on this, Aceveda doesn't want to be the next Gilroy. And also Danny, of course, she got named in that report, and she wants to get out from under that. In fact, you all know that. She got pegged for the armadillo slaying in the cell, and she got to get from under that too. So
there's also the narrative of her wanting to become a mum, and that's how she sees her future, and she's becoming desperate to achieve it. Like
maybe I didn't really like that whole angle about her wanting the baby, but maybe I would premature about that. I'm not sure, but well, that's my take off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you, Tox.
Yeah, it's a good episode. It's well written. It's got a lot of good stuff in it. It's the rewatch. I remember it more fondly than upon the rewatch. The rewatch gives me anxiety with all the missteps they make with legalese and cop stuff. But I mean, I don't, me, I don't like to hold that against an episode. As long as the story is good, then I'm willing to forgive it. But man, there was a lot of plot holes and bad points with the cop.
Could you give us just one brief example? Maybe a primary faux pas.
Yeah, one of them is, Aceveda telling Claudette to move on because it's been ruled a certain way. In California, the rule of law is that they automatically assume it's a felony homicide until it's proven otherwise, not the reverse. So that was just in bad faith. And Vic would be immediately arrested for saying Gilroy's at his place. There'd be automatically he'd have been put in cuffs. That's so silly. It almost pulled me out of the narrative. I just kind of
that's harboring a fugitive.
Yeah, I just kind of had to swallow it and just be like, all right, it's Hollywood, it's TV. There's lesser stuff like Vic not understanding that it's obviously Gilroy that's causing this stuff and assuming it's Aceveda and things like that.
About that for a second. So let's assume that the bullshit version that he told them is true. Gilroy turns up at his house.
Yep.
Etc. Etc.
Yep.
Says he wants to hand himself in. He's drunk. At what point should Vic have, from a legal perspective, to avoid himself being arrested, at what point should he have contacted people and said he's here?
The moment he witnessed him, he'd have to call 911. And he could hold him there, but he could not initiate an arrest himself due to the fact that the personal nature and the fact that he's on Vic's property. Immediately would have to call, and not even call anyone from his department. He'd have to call like LA County Sheriff's Department or something like that.
Right. To avoid the clash of interest kind of thing.
One other little nitpick is just the chief. I'll be real brief. The chief, assuming he's got Aceveda on the back foot by, hey, if you win the election, you're good. I'll give you more time. But if you lose, you're out. Well, okay, maybe, but there's no assumption that he'd automatically be out. A captain is a ranking position, whereas a chief is an elected official. And if he does get elected, Aceveda, then he's above the chief. So that he's complete. So he's now just cut his own throat with Aceveda with that. So that's really silly. I just was like, all right, I'll let it slide. Cause I mean, it is a great episode. It's just those little, cop nitpicky things is the only thing, but other than that, good episode.
Interesting. Again, this also accurately captures Inside Man's facial reaction when I remind him he still hasn't taken me for lunch.
Correct.
So, okay, cool. So standout supporting cast in this episode, we have a lady back again who plays Miss Khalees, the kind of civilian reporter. There's various gangster characters in this episode, and also, of course, we have Tavon, who's introduced. We don't see huge amounts of him, but he certainly gets to make his mark. So Lucinda Jenny plays Lainey Khalees. We have John Deal again, as of course Ben Gilroy. Kathy Cahill Ryan as Corinne. Brian White as Tavon. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right. Cede Lopez plays the pregnant gangster. She was pretty good. And then Roy Canada is police chief Tom Bankston. I said I would mention him earlier. Oh, I'm quite relieved actually to see that he is still alive. You know what? He's an actor I would love to get on here. He's been around for a long time. He has 157 acting credits. Yeah, so This is a man who's been in the trenches. These include, among other things, most recent TV series called The Irrational. I have not seen that. Wu-Tang, An American Saga. I loved that show. I thought that was a really good show. I have seen him in Law and Order that he's done. He's in the Orville, three episodes of the Orville playing an admiral. I also saw that. I saw him in Jack Ryan. So the new sort of TV series. He's done Designated Survivor. I kind of got bored of that after one season. I turned that off. He's in the TV series of The Strain, playing the mayor. I also saw that. Not a bad show. He's done episodes of The Office. And if we go back even further, The Closer, The Mentalist, Boston Legal, Numbers, Law and Order again earlier, Stargate SG-1. And I'm curious to see what his sort of early credits are. Things like CSI and all the usual suspects. Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV movie. Wonder if that's the one with the Hoff in. I'm not sure. Is it?
Yeah,
so his early credits, he was on 5 episodes of Dallas, which I used to watch as a kid religiously. First credit was in I don't know if that's a TV adaptation of The Man Who Wasn't There. And then he was in Street Fleet. I remember that. That was released in America as DC Cab. A movie I've got a bit of a soft spot for.
Do they always change the name of films when they go over to the UK? It seems like
no. It's what happens is if a film doesn't do well or has a title that is specific to. So, for example, DC Cab, no one would know what that means in the UK because people wouldn't know about DC. And cabs were called taxis in the UK, especially back then. I mean, we call them cabs now, but the more prominent term in the 80s was taxi or black cab, I suppose. So they changed it to Street Fleet. I remember when this came out. And I saw it on video, but it did get a UK cinema release. It's all right. It's not an amazing film. It's kind of fun. But So
yeah, I remember that movie.
yeah, Ron Canada. There we are, Ron Canada playing, and he's going to be my pick. So Ron Canada is my pick for the standout supporting actor in this episode. Margarita McIntyre, who plays Emma Prince, is also there in Mackie's shower.
Yeah, she is
doing the voice. Yeah. So, Inside Man, favorite supporting actor in this set?
I'm gonna have to go with Ben Gilroy again. I just, I thought he was just amazing in this episode.
He is very good.
Really, really good. You know, I kind of, he was quite a sad figure. You know, I felt quite sorry for him. But everything's of his own making. You know, he's the architect of his own downfall. So my sympathy didn't really sort of lay within that much. But yeah, he was a great asset to this episode.
Yeah, I agree. Northern.
Yeah, I've got to go with Inside Man here. John Deal just sells it. He just sells this guy who had everything and now is just reduced to nothing. A desperate, sad sap of a man, and he's such a weasel. You kind of want to punch him, and you kind of want Victor off him because of what a liability he is. But yeah, there is something very sad, and you can't help but feel a little bad for him, even though he has pretty much put himself in that position.
Yeah, he's entirely responsible for his own demise, and not only that, he's almost going to bring other people down.
Yeah.
With him.
Yep, and he's also kind of like a reflection of what Vic or Acevedo could be if they keep going down that same path.
Yeah. Yeah, good shout. Darth?
You're right, for sure. I like the Bankton scene a lot when they were in the car. I like that scene a lot, but I have to go with Giro.
Okay. Tox.
Yeah, I'm also going with Ron Canada. I think he adds a lot of gravitas to the. Although I disagree with his assumption, you could see how a chief might think that. I think he believed that Acevedo was going down So he was just like, yeah, I love his. Well, I'll get to it later, but yeah, I know I liked him showing up in this. He plays a good. Always plays a good chief or a good administrator. Like he's the guy you believe would be in charge of whatever. When he pops up, I like seeing him when he comes in.
Yeah, no, he is very good in this. All right, okay, so favorite scene or moment, and
what about favorite lead actor?
Oh shit, sorry, thank you. Just testing.
Best lead.
Yeah, okay, best lead for this episode. For me, it's CCH Pounder as Claudette. Understating performance again of just incredible. It's half the time it's not what she says, it's what she doesn't say, and the looks.
Yeah,
like,
it's that.
Yeah,
It's that death stare, isn't it? You know,
the death stare.
Yeah,
the inside man death stare.
She does have that good.
So yeah, Inside Man. Who's your pick?
I'm gonna have to go for Benny Martinez. To be honest with you, I got to be honest with you. I like seeing Acevedo really twitchy. It's quite nice because he's genuinely on the back foot now, and he's starting to sweat. And I think Northern actually put it quite nicely by saying, his goose is cooked. So I think. There's an episode coming where his goose is more seriously cooked than this. But oh really? Right? Okay. I
Yeah.
thought he was terrific.
Yeah, he becomes quite the orator in that episode, but I will say no more. Yikes. Yeah. Okay. Northern lead actor.
Yeah, it's got to be Acevedo because I know I'm saying this again, but it's just seeing him on his last legs as well, and he's really trying to salvage. He's still trying to stamp his authority, but no one's buying it. Claudette's not buying it as well. She's calling him out on his bullshit because he deserves it. He's full of himself, and he should not be in charge of a police station. And he's kind of a reflection on how the police are operating in England today. Just a bunch of busybodies just trying to look good in front of the public, but really all they're doing is just making it worse for themselves. That if you try and go out your way to please everybody, you please nobody. He's using no common sense whatsoever, and it's all coming back on him now. He's paying the price for it, and he's going to pay even more for it soon.
Good choice, Darth.
I gotta go with Shane. Look at the body language, the facial expression. I think he's got
it. Good performance from Walton Goggins.
He's always good.
Toxic.
Yeah, it was almost Shane. I like the whole pillow over to make a redundant silencer kind of thing. I thought that was pretty clever. I like everything he does in this, but I got to give it to CCH Pounder again, just because, and maybe especially because of the last episode, because we get to see, how she's just so consistent, isn't she? And when she's reading the paper and Vic walks in, and she's just killing him with that facial expression.
Yeah.
And you have to walk up to her. It's so good. God, she's so good.
Yeah, the Lakers played pretty close. They're not the only ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I did really like that scene. Yeah, so okay, me and Tox both agree again. God, stranger things have happened at sea. Okay, so now we are on to favorite scene or moment and line. I did like, there's a few lines in this I really liked. One of them was Acevedo's line, "I'm a Latino police captain. I could find a job in a dozen cities tomorrow." Now, I don't think that line would be written in a show today, but it would be more true today than it was back in 2003 when this line was written. And it's also so relevant because of DEI and et cetera, and whichever side of the fence you may fall on those arguments. It just goes to show how ahead of the curve this show was. You know, that's one of the lines that just says, "Hey, you know, this show, the writing is brilliant." But that's not my pick. My pick, which is also my favorite scene, is the last scene with Claudette and Vic, where she's on the computer. He desperately wants to use it so he can go home. He's got to fill out a crime report. It's amazing they've only got one computer as well that's working to do these things. And you know, and he I've already mentioned it. I'm not going anywhere. You know, you might as well get used to me being around. And she just says, "Neither am I," and she doesn't flinch in a second. And I just the deadpan delivery of that line, and then episode closes. Only CCH Pounder could close an episode with a line like that, delivered that way, and make it have such gravitas and such power. If Dutch had said that line, you know, it wouldn't have worked, because we don't believe Dutch has that kind of power over people. But Wims is this formidable, you know, uncorruptible force. I just love that scene. So yeah, those are my picks. Inside Man.
I have to agree completely. My favorite line there and my favorite scene. It's just, you're right. Nobody could do that the way she does that. It's just, she's just brilliant. Yeah, I loved it. It was just the perfect way to end this episode. A great wrap up of this episode. Fantastic.
Fandabi Dozy. Northern.
I was going to say Claudette. No.
You can say the same one.
I'm getting mixed up a little bit here, but yeah, my favourite line, it was Vic going up to Claudette and saying, "You better start thinking about how much you hate me and how to deal with it, because I ain't leaving, and neither am I." Yeah, that's my favourite line of the entire episode. You know, Vic saying, "You better figure out how much you hate me."
Yeah.
Because I mean, she's already questioning Danny, and he's already got Danny fucking turning against Vic now, because it was his men that pretty much got her in this trouble, in this in this situation, and she's going to lose her job. And not only that, probably any chance of her getting hired as a police officer at another station are entirely jeopardized because of Vic's men.
What's quite interesting about that is that everybody's job seems to be at risk, and everybody's concerned about their jobs, except Claudette. She doesn't seem. She's quite impassive. There's no real concern about it. She doesn't seem to be having a wobbly about the prospect of not having a job there. She just cracks on with everything, and she's the only one.
Yeah, that's a really good observation, actually.
And maybe Julian.
Normally the sort of thing that Darth would come up with, Inside Man. So I commend you.
Bless you.
So yeah, on that note, Darth, your favourite scene and line, not necessarily the same.
They are the same, but I gotta ask real quick before I forget. You said during your intro that Gilroy leaked the report in the beginning of the episode. Where do you hear that?
That information. I nearly missed it, by the way. That it came from him, but it's towards the end. And I actually replayed the scene to make sure I got it correct, because I don't think I picked up on that fact previous to that. It's one line in one scene that tells you. And I'll verify it, but it's certainly my understanding. Do you have a different understanding?
Yeah, I think the leak was more logically would be Lanny herself, because nobody has access to her notes except herself. I'm not sure how Gilroy would get access to those notes. I'm not sure how Gilroy would be in a position to leak anything, really.
Yeah,
unless it's in cooperation with Lanny.
No, yeah, because he is in cahoots with her, because he's
that's right
working with her to bring down Vic.
That's right.
But so I'm assuming at some stage she told him. He probably in conversation with her said, "So what are the salient points?"
That's right.
You know, what have you
Lanny
said?
Lanny wants Vic to freak out over the report at the same time that the Gilroy going free is going on, because she's hoping that
he's got a line.
that he'll make a mistake. She wants to punctuate that.
The line in question is it's black and white that he leaked it, and my take on him leaking it is he did it at the time to throw the barn into chaos, knowing at the same time this would put everybody on the back foot. So
Correct.
maybe
I think he's taking credit for something that he wasn't responsible for.
maybe, but that's the way I perceived it.
But I do think there's some coordination going on. As far as my favorite scene in line goes, the Gilroy line, I made a mistake. I got greedy. There's a lesson there. If there's ever a line that presages the future, there it is. And if there's ever a point where Vic should have went, okay, I need to get off. This is how he missed it there. He missed it with Joe Clark, and he's missing it here.
Yeah,
and that's also the best scene. Where they're at the van, where they're gonna stick Gilroy into the van to go to Mexico, and him, Shane, that whole exchange, and the look on Shane's face, like, yeah, I may not be able to pull the hitman on you, but Shane will. And you look at the look on Shane's face, like, believe it. That whole scene is just awesome from beginning to end. That's my pick.
Okay, yeah, good stuff. Tox.
I agree about the scene. I think I love that at the end. You know, they've had enough of Gilroy's shit, and Gilroy's pulled so many slick ones, and he thinks he's kind of can keep using this card whenever he wants. Having Gilroy pay for his own hitman, brilliant. And the fact that he's got Shane to, you know, basically pull the trigger on it, and we know Shane wants to do it. Great scene. My favorite line is a sort of it's almost a throwaway line, like an aside, but it's when Ron Canada is got Aceveda in the car and just basically says, you know, he doesn't even dignify him with a meeting at his own office. He meets him on a street corner and just says, you know, people have told me about your slick shit, and I'm not having any of it. And it's one of the first times, it's not the last, but it's one of the first times you really see Aceveda on the back foot. And Ron Canada delivers the line so well. You believe he is the chief, and you believe he is out to basically destroy Aceveda. So I really like that.
Cool. Okay, time to rate the episode out of 10. I give this episode another 10.
Damn.
So it's another great episode for me. Really good pace. I like the subplot with Claudette. I think it's really telling. It's nice. You know, we realize that the professionalism she's given to the job has come at the expense of her personal life. And there's shades of that in the case that she's investigating. I really like that parallel. The Gilroy stuff is great. And it's a good introduction to Tavon. So there's actually quite a lot going on in this episode, even more than usual. And it didn't feel like anything was filler. I felt everything justified its presence. So yeah, really liked it. 10 out of 10 for me. Inside Man.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 10 on this because, I mean, that's one thing I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with. There was nothing that was padded in this episode. Everything had its significance. There was nothing that was, you know, nothing sort of erroneous, just sort of plops in there in the middle of these scenes. Everything was necessary. A great episode. Yeah, really one of my favorites. I really, really enjoyed this one.
Good stuff. Northern.
Yeah, I love this episode. I love Claudette calling out Aceveda. I love Aceveda being desperate. I love Danny even going against Vic now after what has happened, and even suspecting Vic of what happened with Amadeo in the last episode, the last couple of episodes. So yeah, 9 out of 10 for me. it has its plot holes, and but I think you can make the argument that Acevedo telling Claudette to move on was just kind of consistent to his own desperation, his irrationality, and his incompetence as well.
Fab stuff. Okay, Darth.
I can't give it a 10. It's a strong 9. My only problem with this episode was how they dealt with the issue of Danny saying, just come out of the blue and saying, "Oh, I'll take the baby." Over that, another exciting episode of LA craziness. We have the pregnant lady getting into a knife fight. We've seen enough of LA craziness. So in that moment, it seemed like an episode of Cops more than it did The Shield. I don't think they needed to play it out that way. If they wanted to show Danny being self-reflective, it's like, wow, I could really use my job about this, and she's really thinking about life outside being a cop. Like maybe it's time to have a kid. I think it would have been better to show it like that instead of having this crazy lady in the jail cell. I thought it would have been played like that. So I thought that was a bit of I thought that was really the only flaw of the episode of how they handled that. But otherwise, strong name.
All right. Tox. Is he on the toilet or what's happening? Toxic.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, yep, go for it.
Sorry. I was typing. I didn't want to type anything. I hate to give it an 8 out of 10, but I got to do it just because there's so many egregious cop and legal stuff that's not right, and it's really would have been an easy fix for a lot of the stuff. I get that they're heading towards the season finale, but I can't quite forgive it enough to give it a higher rating. But it is well acted, and the story is great. So it's only because of those things, and the stuff I mentioned is like a third of it. So,
All right. Very good. Okay. Well, overall, people seem fairly happy with these 2 episodes. I thought they were 2 cracking episodes, real reminders of why I absolutely love this show so much. We are next week moving on to, funnily enough, episodes 11 and 12. So we're coming, we're getting there with season 2.
Is it 12 or 13 episodes?
Yeah, it's and season 2 has got 30. Yeah, we've got episode 13. I don't know, we might do 11, 12 and 13 next week, but I'm probably going to veto that because especially as I'm going to be out late on Saturday. So it may be that we do 11 and 12 next week, and then we do 13 the following week, and we kind of look back on season 2 in general and pick out our standout actor for season 2, our standout supporting actor for season 2.
May I ask something before I forget?
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about how a movie in the States will go to the UK with a different name.
Not always, but it's happened. It happens. Right. I would say it happens infrequently, but it happens.
Okay, so how about a movie from the UK to the US? Has that happened?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know one example that was I think it was called The Madness of King George Roman numeral 3. I know what that means, but most Americans probably think that you're saying, wait, is this the third movie or the first movie? It looks like it's like the third movie in a series. So they changed the name, I think, but I don't remember what it was.
I'm sure that film was just released as The Madness of King George in the UK. I don't think it was released as The Madness of King George III.
I think it wasn't. I think it was released in the UK, which is why it was changed in the US, because people in the US wouldn't have known what the 3 meant.
Well, now you've said that.
I know who King George III was. Most Americans don't.
Yeah, I had a very nice letter from the lead actor of that 1994 movie, because I wrote to him, asked him to come and see one of my plays, Nigel Hawthorne.
Yeah, what a wonderful accent.
No, right, okay, here you go. This is the confusion, mate. So the movie is based on a stage play called The Madness of King George III,
Okay.
but the movie, even when it was, because it was released in the UK before the US, was always called just The Madness of King George.
Okay.
Yeah. So its title was not changed for the American market. The title was changed from the original play.
So I heard it wrong then.
Yeah, just changed from the original stage play. That's not uncommon, so that it just rolled off the tongue a bit easier. So, yeah, there we are.
Sure, because in the US, people aren't going to know you're talking about, but in the UK, you say, which King George?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should really watch that movie again. I haven't seen it for quite a while. Anyway, let's talk about a couple of other things quickly. So coming up tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, I have an interview with author and screenwriter Karen Essex, who was forwarded to me by Shari Bruckhart. Very grateful for that, Shari. Thank you. What's really interesting about Karen is, aside from the fact that she's written a number of historical fiction novels, which have been very successful, including those set in Egyptian times. She's done 2 books from Cleopatra's point of view, another one called Pharaoh. But she's also written screenplays for James Cameron. So she's going to be a really interesting guest. Dan Candy, not the whole show. You've got about 5 minutes left, but you can rewatch. So, yeah, so she's coming on Monday night at 8 o'clock. On Tuesday, of course, we have the Nielsen ratings, where we're going to be talking all things Munich related, because we will be very much talking about the new film September the 5th, which is about the Black September Munich incident. Then on Wednesday at 8 o'clock, subject to the availability of my guests, and assuming Drinker doesn't have any trouble coming back from Miami, we have industry interview 100 with my good friend and older bro, Jason Flemyng, actor. Oh my, whose surname I've just realised is spelled incorrectly on this poster. There's no I in his name. It's just YNG. Yeah, so I better get on to my highly paid thumbnail creator to fix that. And of course, we have the Critical Drinker coming on, where we're going to be discussing our go-to movies in certain genres. So it's going to be more of a kind of relaxed, chilled chat. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Lance, didn't you write a book about movies most recently and get it published?
I did. Yes.
No, you didn't.
I did. It's called.
No.
It's called.
Tell us about it.
It's called Silver Screen Journeys, and it's currently available on Amazon. I just had another review drop on there, which is another very nice review. So thank you for that. If you have already bought the book, do please, when you've read it, leave a review. All the typos have now been weeded out. So if you bought the book if you bought the book this year, it shouldn't have any typos in it. If you bought the book pre-Christmas, I'm afraid it does have a few, because we were a little bit behind on the proofread for release. But the book is available, and I've had some lovely reviews. When you read it, please do leave a review, because quite a few people I know have bought copies. So yeah, I've had 9 reviews so far on Amazon.co.uk. 8 of them have been 5 stars out of 5, and 1 4-star out of 5. So yeah, great stuff. So look forward to more of those. Toxic also has a book out called Slapdash.
Correct.
Yes, I remembered that. I did remember that correctly. That is also available on Amazon. It's also had 2 reviews now. You've had a couple of reviews now. You've had 2 ratings now.
Oh wow, I didn't know.
Yeah. Did you not know that?
I did not. I've been kind of I'm working on the next book and been kind of busy.
I forget to check these things
So this is the first book in a trilogy. I
It
think
is.
I heard you say, yeah.
It is indeed. Yes, it is indeed.
The first book is called Slapdash. The second book is called Sloppy Work. And the
third one's called Sloppy Seconds.
That was my second wife's names. That's crazy that you knew that right off the top of
I thought the third book was called Appalling Rendition. But anyway.
You clever gents, you clever gents.
So if anybody ever reviews this show, that's going to be the best line right there by Inside Man.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, indeed. Best supporting actor of the week. So we're going to be back with the Nielsen ratings on Tuesday at 10 o'clock as well. Northern, have you got anything coming up? What you got next Friday? You normally do a stream on Friday, don't you?
Well, it's going to be it's Valentine's Day on Friday, so I'll be taking a week off. It's me and the wife. We've got a restaurant booked, so we're going to have a nice meal and
Nice.
Yeah, and I probably might try and do a review on Love Hurts if I get a chance to see it, or maybe September 5th, since I have seen that first. So we'll see what happens if I'm busy, because I've got others I need to do as well. I'm trying to get my James Bond reviews done for November, and other retrospectives that are coming up. Yep, even Casino Royale 1967 and Never Say Never Again. So pray for my soul, please.
I actually just watched The Spy Who Loved Me again last night, and
that is a good one.
Because I was reading a book as part of the research for the book I'm doing at the minute. I've got a whole load of books I'm working my way through, and I thought, I'll just put something on in the background while I'm reading this book. So in the background, of course, I put on The Spy Who Loved Me, and there are certain scenes that I just have to watch every time. So I didn't get a huge amount of reading done. It's okay for people to jump off straight away. Before anyone leaves, this is the first film on Munich that I mentioned earlier, called 21 Hours at Munich. And it's not a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. And
I like both actors on here, William Holden and Franco Nero, so we'll check that out.
Anthony Quayle is really good in it as well. Yeah. But it's the actual attack on the complex when they first kidnap all the hostages is really, really well done, as is the scene at the airport is really well done. And it's funny because I'll talk about this more on Tuesday, but I forgot again. Munich must have come out in the early 2000s, right? Is that right? The Steven Spielberg.
So,
it's 2005, 2006.
Right. So that came out probably just before I had my brain hemorrhage. So I had completely forgotten that one of my birthday trips was to see Munich. I took everybody to see Munich because I thought Steven Spielberg, it's got to be good. And I remember us all coming out of the cinema going, Christ, well, that was really heavy. we were all sort of like really down. Not the same buoyant mood that I normally like my birthday guests to experience. So I decided not to do a heavy movie again. But
it is a heavy movie, but it's really well done. The action's really good. Eric Bana, Eric Bana.
But as a depiction of the events of Munich, I actually thought this film was way better, because Munich is not about the events of Munich per se. It's about
it's just about the Mossad agents going after the people.
It's about what Mossad did after Munich. Yeah, that's and does do the ends justify the means? It asks that kind of moral question of how many people are you going to keep killing as a result of this thing, and some of them may or may not have been involved in it. But I mean, it is a good film. But this film is a much better film about the events of Munich itself. You could do an edit of this and the 5th of September together as one long movie, and you'd see everything, But yeah, try and watch this if you can before Tuesday, so you've seen a different perspective.
Yeah, and I'll happily revisit Munich again as well.
I want to watch that again. I haven't seen it since I bought it on DVD. I've only watched it once, so I may even stick it on tonight. Okay, great. Well,
by the way, you know, one more thing about Munich. I believe a lot of people don't know this, but Munich was an attempt by the Olympic Committee to get Germany as sort of like welcome back to the
forget about World War II. Yeah,
right, because Tokyo and Rome hosted the Olympics a couple of years before this, before Mexico City. So and they were the Axis power. So Rome, Japan, and now Munich. So to have this happen involving Israeli athletes, it was the worst possible thing that could have happened for the Germans as their sort of welcome back party out to the international community.
Yeah, no, yeah, it really was. You're very right about that. Anyway, well, we'll talk more about Munich on Tuesday. So it just reminds me to thank my guests for tuning in. I don't know why our viewing figures have been lower, because prior to my Instagram getting hijacked, we were always getting about 15, 20 people watching this live. Now we're down to under 10, which sucks.
Well, it is the Super Bowl's on today, bud.
Ah, okay. Fair enough. So just to remind people, my Instagram got hacked, not this Saturday, just gone, but the last Saturday. That is the Steen Anthony Nielsen one. I have resurrected my Outcast Creative Instagram. That is me. But if you get any messages or correspondence from the other one, that is not me. So let me know straight away. Anyway, so until Monday at 8 o'clock, when I'll be talking to Karen Essex, that's it from us. Of course, we'll be doing the next 2 episodes of The Shield, in theory, next Sunday, subject to my hangover. In the meantime, there's a new version of this, so we'll see you soon.